I mean, as you correctly put it, and as I said, I think in the beginning of that chapter, if I'm not mistaken, that Indian civilization, which is Hindu civilization, has always centered around temples. Um, and invaders have known that if we want to conquer India, if we want to annihilate Indian civilization, we have to somehow destroy temples. We have to destroy this way of life that the fountainhead of which is temple. So temple is the center of learning, of defense, of economy. Everything around is centered around temple, of marriages, everything. So I think that is the genesis, and that the Brits were not unusual or unique in thinking that. I mean, for 1,000 years, possibly more, all invaders have thought that and have succeeded. We have hundreds, tens of hundreds, thousands of temples that have been destroyed. And every time you destroy a temple, the invader also destroys a way of life. I mean, and Naipaul has said it so beautifully in his second book of his India trilogy. I think India, a Wounded Civilization, as to what explains the destruction of Indian civilization and the way we are now and the way we were then. And he talks about Vijayanagara, and he talks about how it took almost 100 years to destroy it. And he talks about once it was destroyed, then it was almost impossible to come back to that glory again. And then he talks about it's such a depressing book, because you realize what it takes to destroy a civilization. But at the heart of the destruction of civilization is the destruction of temples and the way of life. So the British knew that very well, but they were very cunning, and that is why they're a notch up upon the invaders, because they, of course, did their job. Rather than, brutally destroying the temples, they thought of, let's control the temple. If we control the temple, we'll get the revenue, we'll dictate the way of life, we'll slowly. So there's a very nuanced way these guys worked. And once you control it, then you control the pulse of India, the Indian civilization. And the second thing that they allowed was that they passed this on. So even when they left, the controlling of the temples continued, because the Britishers may have gone, but the governments that followed them, they immediately latched on to realize this idea that it's wonderful. You want to control India, let's control the temples. And how true it is. But, controlling the temples is one thing. When you control a particular way of life, which is controlling exclusively, or, in more ways than one, than any other religion, the places of worship of only Hindus, you're actually also stifling the Hindu way of life. You're preventing Hindus to become Hindu temples, to become richer, so that they can contribute to the, setting up more temples, setting up pathshala, setting up schools, orphanages that I talk about. So it is actually an assault on Hinduism itself. People don't realize this. It's all very well that the government dictates. So now, for example, the Andhra government dictates that Tirupati will give this much money to the government. There is no discussion on that. It dictates, how much you have to pay for auditing from N.T.R. Ramesh, who's worked the maximum on this field. And, most of my knowledge that I have got on this subject comes from Mr. T.R. Ramesh and J. Sai Deepak and his Indic Collective and other people, stalwarts like that. So I'm a pretty late entrant into this, having realized that, what kind of destruction is being wrought. And Hindus aren't just aware. And the tragedy is that you give a few lollipops here and then, and you kind of, it's like the gullibility index keeps on going up, because the government say, and now when it came out that the Telangana government is paying 17,000 muezzins and maulanas a salary of, I think, 5,000 rupees per month or something like that. And I pointed that out, and I said, how the hell is that secularism? Secularism means complete, distinction between church and state. You're paying, the religious preachers. Then the retort was, we're paying Hindu priests as well. Well, you better pay them, because you're leeching the money from Hindu priests and Hindu temples. You're not leeching money from mosques. So you're taking money from Hindu temples and you're saying, well, we're throwing a few pennies to you, so you be grateful. And it's just rubbish. And people seem to buy that argument, and I'm just completely shocked. And it's not just the Telangana government. Every government, state and center, is doing this. I really don't know what the solution to that is. I think Sadhguru came up with, give the temples back to Hindus. That movement he started. I don't know what came of it. The Madhya Pradesh government under Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan has promised that it will leave the Hindu temples and give back the control, but nothing is written so far. It's just a verbal declaration in some rally speech he's given. There's nothing, no written word. So I don't know where it goes.